Story Sirens, the podcast where we deep dive into myths, legends, and folklore from around the world. I'm Yenny.
And I'm Sarah, and today we've unearthed a very special treasure for you listeners. Today we are joined by voice actor, musician, podcaster, and creator and host of the NoSleep Podcast, the one and only David Cummings.
Yay! Thanks for joining us, David. Care to introduce yourself further to our listeners?
I do care to do that. Thank you, ladies, Sarah and Yenny. Such a thrill to be here. As you mentioned, I'm David Cummings, creator and host of the NoSleep Podcast. We're a horror anthology podcast. We tell scary stories and have been doing so for almost 15 years. So
Oh my gosh.
if you like really well-produced scary stories with great voice actors and music and great audio productions, please check us out. And I'm pretty sure you will hear the lovely voice of Sarah Thomas on many, many stories.
Mm-hmm. Just a few.
few.
You get to hear me die a lot. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I've pulled myself out of my grave to be here.
Oh.
Well, the schedule is very busy for David. After all, it is the most horrifying time of the year.
Yes.
And he's here to exhume some extra creepy myths and legends for us.
Yes, we're digging deep this week, y'all. Today's episode is all about graveyards and the folklore associated with them. Trigger warning for this episode, we gotta say it. We will be discussing animal harm, being buried alive, and multiple forms of death, including execution and suicide. So listener discretion is advised.
We love a fun fright we do not wish to traumatize. So let's ease into our graves and begin with some graveyard superstitions.
There's a lot of puns today.
Well, I knew David would be here, so I had to beat him to the pun.
Well done.
That, and if Jessica McAvoy listens to this episode, I need her to really hate it. So, it's only natural that there would be superstitions surrounding graveyards. With their morbid business, how could humans resist creating a list of do's and don'ts near the resting place for the dead? One common superstition is to hold your breath when passing by a graveyard. Have either of y'all ever heard of this or practiced this?
No, because what if the graveyard's super long? Like, you're gonna die before you even finish the graveyard.
It's all a scheme by the dead to get you in there faster.
Man, funeral homes make money. I'm gonna just say that.
I actually learned about this one from my mother-in-law. She does this one. I hadn't heard of it before. So, one belief behind this superstition is that it would be disrespectful to breathe around the dearly departed.
Okay, come on now. Come on.
It's a little funny. But this is no laughing matter. Another belief was that holding your breath was a sure method to keep the spirits of the dead from entering into your body and possessing you.
Like why some people may say bless you after you sneeze, right?
Precisely.
There you go.
Precisely.
If you were... Oh, Sarah, I don't know what's going on.
No, the Flimmy coffee business is my shtick.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Have you breathed something in that you shouldn't have? Is that what's happening here?
Well, I don't think I have a graveyard anywhere near me, so I think I am okay.
Who knows? It's Miami. There are haunts everywhere.
There are haunting Cuban aunties and grandmas everywhere watching you in Miami. There really is, though. There really is.
Absolutely.
Anywho, if you were taught never to whistle in a graveyard, it's for much the same reason. Many believe that whistling would disturb the rest of the spirits and, worse yet, draw their attention to you. Like I said, you don't want a deceased tia to be around you telling you that you need to lose weight. So.
Oh, gosh. Which also, can I just say, whistling seems like a little bit of a jovial thing to do in a graveyard. That just seems a little strange to me. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe.
It depends, because in some cultures, whistling is used to grab people's attention.
So you want to grab the attention of the dead?
I don't know, but maybe that person that died is from that culture and goes, huh? Did someone call me? So, you never know.
So another superstition is to never count tombstones in a graveyard. This is rooted in the belief that counting the dead will shorten your own life. Or worse yet, it could reveal how many days you have left to live. I don't like it. I don't like that one.
You know, it was often believed that the souls of the newly dead would be confused by their newfound state of being. And many visitors to graveyards were taught to walk away from gravestones backwards. Not the moonwalk, but just slowly walk backwards. And this was to further confuse the newly dead spirit who would be tempted to follow the living home. So you want them to stay where they are. They're not going to follow you. So walking backwards would prevent the soul of the dead from latching onto the living and haunting them. Those creepy newly dead spirits.
How dare they?
And while this is not necessarily a superstition, have either of you ever caught yourself saying "Saved by the Bell"?
Well, I do love the show.
See? This is one I think we're all a little bit more familiar with. And this phrase does not originate from schools or boxing, but from graveyards.
Huh.
So, before scientists defined brain death in the 1960s, there was basically no distinction between brain death and heart death. In the 19th century, that lack of anatomical understanding caused a lot of problems. People were being buried alive.
Yep.
And this led to a massive increase in taphophobia, the fear of being buried alive.
Which is very understandable.
Agreed.
Right. So the safety coffin was soon invented to help alleviate these fears. The safety coffin often had vents to allow fresh air in, and a bell attached to the grave marker was connected by a cord, buried, and attached to the individual inside the coffin. If the person had been mistakenly declared dead, their movements would ring the bell, alerting graveyard attendants of the mistake.
My question is, what if the graveyard attendants are in lunch?
Well, stop taking long lunches, people.
Like, how many times would that person be there ringing the bell before? Because I feel like, too, when you get anxious, you breathe. Even obviously, you go into, like, hyperventilation mode. And so...
Hey, you've got air vents,
Well,
so
this is
you
true.
should be able to, like, they put those there for a good reason.
Maybe they put, like, a little stash of bread and cheese just in case, too. Like, just in case. You know, you could be eating.
So therefore, like, what's the incentive to even leave? I mean, come on.
Very true. Very true.
A snack, a nap, we're good.
Or if technology was around and they had phones in the coffin, can you imagine calling up saying, "I'm buried alive," and you get put on hold?
Oh, no.
Oh,
Instead of, like, the
no.
911 answering the call. You know, there have been, like, crazy 911 operators. Can you imagine? She's like, well, you're going to have to wait a bit because we got to bring out the excavator. Jeez.
Oh, gosh.
You know, we've covered graveyard superstitions, so let's discuss some of the supernatural things that can be found in graveyards.
Oh,
Let's do it.
all right. And I'll start off with the church grim. For a long time in many European Christian countries, graveyards were part of the church grounds, or parish. The grounds would be consecrated by the church leaders, and the graveyard would be the final dwelling for most members of the local community. Today, we often see stone fences and elaborate wrought iron gates protectively surrounding graveyards. But what if we told you there are often unseen forces protecting these hallowed grounds? During the Middle Ages, it was widely believed that the first being buried in a new graveyard would be tasked with protecting the graveyard in the afterlife, which honestly, I died working and you're making me work again. And then why do I gotta be the one to take care of everybody? I'm still
Because you're
trying,
the first one.
but I'm still trying to understand how death works. This is too much.
Is this like why people want to be fashionably late so they're never the first one there and like the first one in the graveyard?
Honestly. So their soul would be tethered to the graveyard for eternity, neither moving on to heaven nor hell, which this just seems terrible.
This does seem terrible.
The priests believed it would be unholy to condemn a human soul to this eternal responsibility. Thank you, priests. So a solution was found. It would not be a person who was the first interred into the graveyard, but an animal, often a large dog, though horses, pigs, and birds were sometimes used. This is so sad. This animal's soul would preside over the graveyard as the guardian or church grim, warding off evil spirits and frightening off grave robbers and other ne'er-do-wells. We could tell that I did not write this episode. The church grim would often appear before the living as a shaggy black dog with bright red eyes. It was believed that if the church bells rang at midnight, it was the church grim ringing them to foretell a coming death in the community.
Ah. And did you know that in Scottish folklore, the graveyard watch would fall to the most recently buried person in the graveyard? I guess you could say the first person killed.
Oh, I love it.
That pun needs to be buried.
No. We're going to highlight it.
So their watch would end and their soul could move on only when another person was buried. This correlates with variations of the church grim legend, where it was believed the church grim would be the soul of the last person ever buried in that particular graveyard.
Imagine.
So see, you're there first, you're there at the end, you can't win.
But I feel like there could be a romantic story in here somewhere.
Is that where this imagine was leading?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us.
What
Tell us.
if-
You're here now.
What if he's like, the lover dies and he's like, I'll wait for you. And then she dies and so she becomes the church grim, but he doesn't want to leave her. So because of that, they both stay as church grims. But then when another person dies, they go, all right, peace. And then they leave. But it's a whole book. I feel like it exists somewhere.
All right. Get started. Start writing. I'd
someone
read it.
write it and then say story Sirens.
And then David can narrate it.
Oh my God, there you go.
Perfect.
I love this. All right. Now, spirit dogs aren't the only beings haunting graveyards. Legend has it throughout Brittany and France that every graveyard has its own spiritual being known as the Ankou. This being was the last person to die in the community before the start of the new year.
That's not
We've all
fair.
heard of, New Year's babies being born. Well, you're out with the old year.
Oh God, Sarah.
Having been the last person to die that year, his soul was trapped in the graveyard, and it was his duty to protect it until another soul could take his place.
The Ankou is described as being a tall, thin, or almost skeletal-looking man with long white hair, dressed in black robes, and wearing a wide-brimmed black hat and carrying a scythe.
So this is Lucius Malfoy.
Very, very Lucius Malfoy, Grim Reaper,
Yes.
angsty death boy.
Angsty death boy.
I hope there's a spirit Halloween near the graveyard because you got to get all that stuff
imagine?
together.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh man, my robes got all shredded. All right, gotta go find another
Spirit.
outlet mall.
So sometimes he drives or pulls a cart through the cemetery with him, looking for restless spirits so he can return them to their graves. And if a living person saw the Ankou, it was an omen of their impending death. The entire idea of the Ankou is haunting, being saddled with an immense responsibility after death that can only be released when another person dies. Ugh, kind of gives you goosebumps, doesn't it?
Gives me the goosies.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I definitely have goosebumps. I don't like this.
Although I would be okay if I see Lucius Malfoy. I'll be like, oh my God, love your hair. There's this one person on Instagram that dresses as Lucius Malfoy and just like does like, like dance moves with his like flowing hair. And I love it every time. I love it. Anywho. Anywho, we could see what my For You page looks like. So, now, what about when mythology enters the real world, guys?
Okay.
This next topic isn't so much folklore as it is dark history. We discussed crossroads briefly in our Deals with Devils episode, but they frequently appear in folklore because they are seen as liminal spaces, a kind of threshold between worlds. Creepy, right? Up until the 1820s in the UK, crossroads were often used as burial grounds for executed criminals and deaths by suicide. There were multiple reasons for this. Firstly, both groups were forbidden from being given a Christian burial. Secondly, there was rarely anyone willing to pay for a burial plot for these sorts of deaths, as they were seen as social outcasts. Lastly, It was believed by some religious and community authorities that burying a body at a crossroads would cause the soul of the dead to become confused, hindering their ability to move on into the afterlife or to return and haunt the living. It was the last sort of punishment the living could give the dead, so authorities believed.
Okay, well, that's just horrible.
It is absolutely horrible. And also, like, halfway through, I can imagine, like, you know, you died, you get up, and you're like, shit, which is the road less taken? Like, which way do I go? Where is heaven?
I mean, yeah.
Where's hell? Where's the next spirit Halloween? So you don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, let's step away from that darker history and move on to some more fantastical history. David, I hear that you have some local cemetery tales to share with us.
I do indeed. Now, ladies, I live in a little town called Niagara-on-the-Lake, and that's up in Canada, near, as you might guess, near Niagara Falls. So Niagara Falls flows over the big escarpment, and the water runs down the Niagara River, and that river flows into Lake Ontario. And so we live in this little town right at the mouth of the river. Right across the river is New York State. So here we are in Canada. Right across the river is America. And if we travel back in time all the way to 1812, a year that you might be familiar with.
Very, very auspicious year.
Indeed. So we're not far removed from the American Revolution, and the Canadian side, that's where we were still basically a British colony. So a lot of British people on our side, and then newly formed America on the other side. Well, some of those Americans thought to themselves, hey, we already beat Britain and got our independence. Why don't we try to take a little more territory? And so the Americans decided that they wanted to fight to try to get more of our land, and thus the War of 1812 began. And so we have a fort here on the Canadian side called Fort George, named after the king at the time. And across the river is Fort Niagara, the American side. And so as wars happen, somebody fires the first shot, and the two sides are at war with each other. And so cannon fire goes back and forth from the forts, and then one night the American side get in their rowboats and they row across the river, and they invade the British or Canadian side. There is a church here in Niagara-on-the-Lake called St. Mark's Anglican Church, and it was standing at the time, and it has a very historic, old, auspicious graveyard. And it's a beautiful place to walk around and to see these old headstones and the long history there. Well, during war, of course, the Americans are coming over, and there's musket fire, and there's a lot of fighting going on. Now, when we think about graveyards, we think, well, they're haunted because the souls of the dead are buried there, and they rise and they do all that kind of stuff. But other times when we think about hauntings, we think about hauntings take place in places that are usually there's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of anguish, hatred, pain. When those events happen, we feel like there's that psychic residue that's left over that can lead to hauntings.
Yeah.
And so as the war is going on, people are being killed. And of course, back in those days, you can imagine the horrific injuries of musket balls firing and close hand-to-hand combat with knives and axes. And so there is great suffering going on there and great pain. And St. Mark's graveyard was actually turned into almost like an infirmary or a battlefield, places where the doctors would try to treat the wounded. And so there is a famous headstone there, or I'm not sure what you call it, but sometimes you've probably seen grave markers that basically lie flat on the ground.
Yes.
They don't stand up. And so there was this relatively large grave marker, maybe 4 feet by 6 feet, almost like a big long dining room table that was lying on the ground. And the doctors, I guess, felt that this would make a good place where they could put a body down there and treat it, almost like an operating table. And because of, again, the sign of the times, the medical science back in those days, there wasn't a lot of time to do a lot of delicate surgery. If you took a musket ball to your leg or your arm, well, that had to come off.
Yeah, it had to saw off.
And so they would put the body on this large gravestone, this operating table, as it were, and they would take a hatchet and they would chop off the wounded limb.
So imagine that it's filled with emotional trauma, that area.
Absolutely. And on that headstone to this day, you can see marks where the blade came down.
Cut into the stone?
Cut into the stone. That's right. So there are marks. Now, in fairness, there are some people who say that that's actually not the cause of these marks, and that's a little bit disputed. But look, we're here to be spooky and scary, so
yes, of course,
we like to believe that that really happened. And so this is a well-known cemetery. And in fact, Niagara-on-the-Lake in general is considered one of the most haunted towns in Canada because of the war. Yeah, absolutely. There's a place called the Old Angel Inn, an old sort of British pub that's still in operation. That's haunted. There's a lot of locations, and people come here, and it's also known as the prettiest little town in Canada. It's very quaint. There's vineyards in the area and all this stuff. But so when people say, how can this lovely little town and this picturesque historic graveyard, why are we talking about hauntings? Well, like I said, if you need pain and despair and anguish and suffering to leave that psychic residue, you can now imagine why we live in this haunted town with a very haunted graveyard.
Man, I say it all the time.
Okay, that's incredible.
I say it all the time. People are like, oh, I wish we could go back to the old days. I'm like, do you really? Because the old days didn't have morphine or anything to knock you out except for tequila and or moonshine. And that was it.
And that could make you go blind.
There you go. Well, I mean, even if they would saw or cut off their foot, then they could immediately get sick still because of
gangrene.
Yeah, gangrene, and also just different things that they didn't know, diseases that you could contract from open wounds. It was just
think about it. I mean, the overseer of one of the maternity wards, who was basically the leader of germ theory, they laughed him out of his maternity ward, and I mean, he basically died destitute because no other doctors took him seriously because they were like, oh, you believe in these tiny little things that are going to kill women. He's like, yes, I do. It'll kill everybody.
I know that we're doing haunted graveyards this episode. We should definitely consider doing hospitals for next year.
Oh, okay. Well, this may be the site of a lot of suffering. This may be the site of a lot of foo-for-ah. Who knows? Listener, you get to decide. London, England's Highgate Cemetery opened in 1839. We're loving the 1800s this episode. And it was one of 7 planned graveyards that would serve the citizens of London and surrounding communities. Most parish graveyards were basically at capacity, and the bustling city of London was finding itself densely populated by the dead. So, Highgate was designed to be a modern and attractive graveyard, viewed by the public as a fashionable resting place.
Yeah, yes. It's the Macy's of graveyards.
We have to be keeping up with the Joneses, even in death. That is the true horror of this episode. But by the 1960s, it had long since fallen into disrepair. Ivy, shrubs, weeds grew in unfettered abundance, and animals and wildlife were basically the ruling population there. Grave sites were marred by graffiti and other works of vandalism. Tombs were falling apart, revealing the coffins and sometimes the bodies within them. And as it goes with any abandoned site, stories of ghosts, spirits, and other mysterious sightings within Highgate Cemetery circulated throughout London. Now, in 1969, paranormal investigator, or really paranormal enthusiast, David Farrant spoke to 2 individuals about their respective encounters with the supernatural within Highgate Cemetery. Both witnesses spoke of feeling suddenly cold and seeing a tall, dark figure watching them with angry, glowing eyes. Now, Farrant himself spent a night in the cemetery.
This is why I say you go looking for it. You know, you go looking for these things.
He spent the night in the cemetery and claimed to have seen a 7-foot-tall being.
In the name of Jesus.
Felt a sudden and drastic chill and claimed he felt as if all the energy was being drained from him. Ferrant understood this was a psychic attack and managed to escape, and he reported these stories to the Hampstead and Highgate newspaper, asking that anyone else with similar experiences reach out to him.
And nobody did. No, that's not true.
End of the story. We're done.
A gentleman known as Sean Manchester saw Ferrant's writings in the paper and was intrigued. He believed the figure seen in the Highgate Cemetery was most certainly a vampire.
A vampire.
And he, in turn, reached out to the newspaper.
It was Edward Cullen.
He saw him in the twilight. That's
Oh.
Ooh,
And it
this
sparkled.
is the skin of a killer, Bella. And I'm English.
So in 1970, the paper published an interview with Manchester under the headline, "Does a Vampire Walk in Highgate?" In the interview, Manchester explained he believed that a, quote, king vampire of the undead, end quote, who had been an Eastern European aristocrat and practitioner of black magic, had been buried in the grounds of Highgate Cemetery long before it had been formally established as a graveyard.
It sounds like he's describing Dracula, though.
Yes, absolutely. You're not wrong about that.
Pretty much.
So with the rising interest in witchcraft, Satanism, paganism, and New Age beliefs in the 60s and 70s, Manchester believed the ancient vampire had been reawakened by the surge of spiritual activity and was now stalking the living.
It's the D&D kids. They're ruining everything.
That's right.
Hey, listen, the satanic panic of the 80s was a real thing.
It was.
That's
It
right.
was. Everybody was like, D&D is demons and more demons. So
Listen, nerds just can't be happy.
No, we can't.
It's not the D&D, it's the video games. Moving on.
And they take their vinyl records to the cemetery and play them backwards.
Oh,
you see
no.
it all?
Oh, my gosh.
all that.
Oh, my gosh.
So on top of all of that, Manchester claimed to have spoken to several victims of vampire attacks, specifically young girls and women who had dreams of vampires, sleepwalked, and woke with strange injuries that were attributed to vampire bites. The
We're
worst
getting way suspicious.
the worst form of bedbugs. So later, police investigations would find signs of pagan and satanic rituals taking place within Highgate Cemetery, with pentagrams drawn on tomb floors, black candle stubs, and strange symbols by tombstones, and even what appeared to be animal sacrifices.
not the chickens. Not the
Oh,
chickens.
oh,
no.
yeah.
Those are the
Oh, yeah.
first one.
Horrifying.
There was even a subcategory of mystery during this whole
Really?
mania that was basically what's killing the Highgate foxes.
Oh, no.
And yeah, and it was
the
very gory and very bad, and I did not include that for a reason.
Oh.
So, but basically, what ensued after the interview and the police investigations can only be described as full-on vampire hysteria. More and more witnesses came forward with stories about vampire attacks, ghostly encounters, and basically all sorts of horrific hearsay. On Friday, March 13th, 1970, hundreds of armed vampire hunters swarmed Highgate Cemetery in search of the fiendish vampire, despite police intervention and them trying to say, no, please stay out of the cemetery.
I guess you could say the stakes were high.
Oh, gosh, David. I love it. I love it.
Sean Manchester said that the Highgate vampire resulted in
Panic and fear and disbelief on a scale which one might anticipate if an alien had landed from outer space. The collective imagination had no defense against what we unearthed back in the late 60s in Highgate.
bum bum bum.
Dun dun dun!
Now, over the next few years, Ferrant, Manchester, and their respective supporters would argue with each other over whether the hauntings of Highgate Cemetery were the work of a vampire or some other ghostly apparition. They would battle over who was responsible from saving the public from these hauntings. Manchester claimed to have performed an exorcism on a strange-looking black coffin that did not look like it belonged with the rest of the coffins in one of the cemetery's mausoleums. Then, later claimed that he and his cohorts opened the same coffin at a later date in a different location and burned the corpse within it. Meanwhile, Ferrant was insistent the evil in Highgate Cemetery was no vampire, but an evil spirit using ley lines to travel throughout the physical world. He and his supporters tried to communicate with the spirit, which, according to them, led to their medium being attacked by a malevolent specter.
Very strange. Well, the rivalry between the two paranormal experts whipped up the public's imagination. There were rumors they would meet to fight magicians' duels on Parliament Hill. See, it always comes back to politics, right?
It does. It does.
So their competition with each other basically continued for decades, each claiming to be the one to have exorcised the evil in Highgate Cemetery, and each one claiming to have a better understanding of all things supernatural.
Oh my God, you could tell that their wives were just like, guys, just go do your little battle, come back.
Give me some quiet.
I cannot. And so it was like, no, I got it. No, I did it. Thanksgiving dinner would suck with those two pairs.
Oh my goodness.
With those two pairs together.
Especially in England.
Oh.
I love you, Yenny. I love you.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, oh so sadly, Ferrant passed away in 2019, but Manchester continues to hunt down and destroy all evil in his path. According to him, anyway, he has vanquished dozens of vampires.
How old is he at this point?
Yeah.
He's an old man. He's an old man, and he's wily, and he apparently is smarter than the vampires, because how else does a vampire hunter get old?
So imagine that Ferrant right now is the Church Grim, and he's been that way because he's like, no, I want to wait until Manchester dies so that then
that would be so good.
He could do this, and then
Ferrant
has
is
to
the
stay
Church
there.
Grim.
Yeah, yeah.
That would also be pretty fantastic, because I believe right now Manchester is a bishop as well as a vampire hunter. So it would be great if Ferrant is the Church Grim around Manchester's parish.
That'd be hilarious.
I'm waiting for you.
Wow.
So who was responsible for banishing the evil from Highgate Cemetery? Was the evil ever actually banished? Reported sightings of a tall, dark figure with glowing eyes popped up again in the 90s and continue to this day, which is wow.
Of course. Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Is there a logical answer to any of this? Well, of course. The Highgate vampire hysteria could all be attributed to several causes, including the long-standing popularity of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the fascination people have with going to supposedly haunted places. I mean, come on. Budgeteens hanging out in a graveyard, practically cliche,
Pretty much.
The draw of stories woven by eccentric and charismatic men. Or perhaps the Highgate vampire is a strange individual trying to keep a legend alive. Or it could be the Anku.
Oh, it could be the Anku.
It could.
That's true.
But honestly, there's no fun in logic. Let's just continue saying it's the Anku or something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like you said, Edward Cullen on holiday.
Hello. Well, David, why don't you help us go into modern media?
Where we feature all the graveyards and all things consumable now.
Yes.
Absolutely. And when it comes to movies that deal with graveyards, can we begin with any other movie than the great one by Stephen King, Pet Sematary, based on his novel? And it's strange that he doesn't know how to spell cemetery, but
No, it's a little odd, a little perplexing there.
A little bit. So, Grave Encounters film as well.
And then, of course, we have Corpse Bride, which maybe we could have put this movie with the zombie episode.
Oh,
I mean,
kind
sure.
of.
But how could we resist a graveside proposal?
Very true.
Very true. And then we have the book A Fine and Private Place by Peter S. Beagle.
Author of The Last Unicorn. So, of course, now he's writing about gravesides because he loves dealing with mortality.
This is very true. Last Unicorn, we have that episode. Go watch it. It's an episode. We also have...
How dare you?
The songs still get me. We also have a book by Roger Luckhurst called Graveyards, A History of Living with the Dead.
How do we live with them?
Huh.
How do they live with us?
Mm-hmm.
The Addams family in the movies, TV shows, and comics seem to have a special love for graveyards, having family meetings, romantic walks, and even family game nights within them.
Very nice.
Fascinating. And of course, after hearing this episode, everyone is going to want to manage their own graveyard, right?
Oh, of course.
Well, you can do exactly that in the video game known as Graveyard Keeper. Come on, how great is that?
Is it a cozy game? Is it a cozy?
I'm not sure. That's a question for Jared,
Yeah.
our local gamer.
Our local gamer. You know, I think the No Sleep Podcast has a few graveyard stories. Any one that's your favorite, David?
Oh, it's so hard. It's almost like you ask a parent who their favorite child is. But yeah, graveyards are often featured in our stories because, of course, they're such a rich source of horror. And I not one particular one comes to my mind, sadly, but I know that there are often great stories written about graveyards, and there's so many angles, if you will, that you can come at it. So you've got, as we've talked about, you've got the teenagers who want to hang out, or especially on Halloween, you want to be there at midnight on the stroke of Halloween night and to see what happens in the graveyard. And there's great historical stories about them. And of course, it's one of my fears. I think it's a universal human fear, but so many stories about people being buried alive. It's just the worst. So yes, lots of great graveyard content on the No Sleep Podcast.
Nice.
Ooh. Well, and I think that ties in perfectly to our siren call, which, surprise, surprise, go check out the No Sleep Podcast. From graveyards to monsters, they've got you covered for the dark hours when you dare not close your eyes.
Absolutely.
David,
Yes,
thank you so much for staying here with us and everything. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been wonderful to be here for this very grave undertaking, but I've had a blast, and thank you for thinking of me. And it's great to meet your fans, as it were. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, everybody, that's it for Graveyards. We've still got a couple more episodes for spooky season in the pipeline for you, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Story Sirens. You can follow us on Instagram at Story Sirens Podcast. Want to support us? Send us a cup of Ko-fi by searching ko-fi.com/storysirens. We've got lots of treats for those who become siren seekers. All research materials can be found in the episode summary. Music by Donald Guzzi and artwork by Alexis Torres. Story Sirens is a Feather and Fin production. See you soon.